So we are here, we're meeting as the Pedestrian Infrastructure Subcommittee of the Public Works Committee of the Representative Town Meeting for Darien. Today is Tuesday, October 3rd. It is 7:36 p.m. and we're calling our meeting to order here. This is our fourth and likely final meeting of this subcommittee. Yeah. If we're lucky.
I was just going to say, be careful what you say.
That's final, that's final.
Yeah, and just for the benefit of anybody who might be watching, we have 5 members on our committee. My name is Frank Edelman. This is Rolf Obin.
Vincent Argenbow.
Right, so we are the 3 members here today and we have a quorum. We're missing our members Patrick Kane and Jeff Krause for personal reasons. We have an agenda that's been posted to the town website. I'm going to just read that very quickly so that we're all on the same page, and then we'll accept that. So our agenda is seven items. Number 1 is a call to order. Number 2 is review and approve the minutes from our last meeting. Number 3 is a final review of the summary of the needs from the original PIAC document, and Rolf, that's basically your spreadsheet. Number 4 is a final review of the output for the report for Public Works. So I have a revised version of my PowerPoint.
Okay.
I'm glad to review. 5 is a quick talk about how we're going to approach the meeting on Thursday, just to make sure we're all on the same page, because I also expect that Jeff and Patrick will be missing that meeting. So the 3 of us will be representing the subcommittee on Thursday. 6 is any other issues relating to pedestrian infrastructure, and then 7 is adjournment. Anybody want to make any changes, or should we accept the agenda?
Well, we accept the agenda.
Hearing no objections, so moved. Okay, so number 2 is let's review and approve the minutes of the subcommittee from last week. So we met last Thursday, the 28th, and I circulated a draft of minutes over the weekend, and I did not get any suggestions of any feedback or changes. So I would like, do you guys have any suggestions? No. I had one typo error that I changed.
Okay, very good.
Wasn't even a typo, it was a tab, should have had a space.
Oh.
Looks funny. So with that cosmetic change, I'm going to move that we approve the minutes.
So moved. Or second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
There you go, all right. Well, I guess
It's hard to
notes.
figure this.
Again,
It's hard to figure with just 3 of us, with, you know,
It was moving, it was voting.
motions.
Yeah, hang on, I think I'm clerk again. So let me just clerk it here. All right. Our agenda item number 3 is to take a final look at the spreadsheet that Rolf did.
Yes, I apologize for the revised revision and the original revised revised.
Rolf, you're a dedicated public servant.
But I just kept finding things, you know.
So, so I will say that I took your spreadsheet, which you circulated to me, and I did, you know, the usual filtering and sorting and stuff like that, and I appended some information. I was not able to get through the entire list of sidewalks and add all the recommendations. What I would say though is that on the document that we shared a couple weeks ago from Ed, which has the list of new sidewalk projects since he started in 2014 as well as stuff prior.
Yes.
There were only, as you recall, 4 new items on that list. So if you compare those 4 new items to the list of needs in the PIAC report, 2 of those items from Ed match up with the PIAC report, and 2 of them were addressing things that were not even on the identified as needs on the PIAC report.
So they weren't even on the report.
Correct, and just
Interesting.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up quickly. So Ledge Road, there was a new sidewalk from Norton Avenue, just 300 feet down to Post 53. That was not identified on the PIAC report as a need. What was identified is Ledge Road on the other side of Norton, from Norton Avenue towards the recycling center.
Yeah.
Towards the dump.
Going east.
Correct, going east, but there was nothing identified going west.
Going west.
Right. Tokenique Road was a new sidewalk on Old Kings Highway, basically from Old Kings Highway South, near like that strip of shops, down under the
Overpass.
highway.
Yeah,
So that was an essential need that was addressed on the, so that's a match and that, you know, very, very much needed. Locust Hill Road was also a small bit of new sidewalk, about 500 feet from Old Kings Highway South to the Delafield Island Road, where there's already some sidewalk existing. And so that
Right, that was
filling in
a
gap.
connection.
Correct. And so that was also identified in the PIAC report. And the fourth one was on West Avenue. Ed's note says that he replaced on West from Norotan Avenue eastbound to Fairfield.
Uh-huh.
And we talked about this last week, that we couldn't recall exactly what had been there or what.
I
But
think it was kind of broken up.
right. So in the PIAC report, there was a need addressed, identified in that area, but it was from Norotan Avenue westbound down the hill towards McGuan Field.
Yeah.
And not eastbound, because there was already a sidewalk eastbound there on the south side of the road. You know, good to have more, but again, that technically didn't match up.
Yeah.
So I guess of the four things that were new, two were on target and two were not mentioned in the original PIAC report. There were a number of other, again, I mean, Ed's been, very busy, and you guys know how highly I think of Ed. He's done a whole lot of repair, maintenance, upgrade, which is great. For example, all along Tokenique Road, even though there's a new segment where we just talked about under I-95, the whole rest of that Tokenique Road from, say, Silver Lakes to Great Hill to Harriet Lane, all the way down to Cliff, has got to be almost a mile. And that was all asphalt in terrible shape. And it's all been upgraded to concrete, which is fantastic.
I
So
remember when
that was a big project, well done. So I don't want to imply that.
yeah, it's not like he hasn't been doing it.
Yeah, he's been doing a lot, right, but we're not filling in the gaps, right? And I think some of the things we've talked about with Ed have been, I think he runs up against some barriers, either kind of organizational barriers or physical barriers, things that are literally in the right of way. So I think I just want to acknowledge that.
The other thing
So
was that, say on West Avenue and Road, that the new development there, the back end of that new development is all new sidewalk, all new. And of course, they had to redo the road there too, so that as you're going north, you can make a right and not block, or as you're coming along on west, or making a left down in there. Yeah, that.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff that's new there, but I was just trying to do the comparison we sort of wanted to do.
Right.
What was in the PIAC
It wasn't thought
report.
about back in 2015,
Exactly.
when the project, before the project was built. Right.
So Ed's over back at town hall. Roll. Again, I thank you for all the work you put in on that spreadsheet. I have augmented it a little bit. I think that with a little bit of formatting change, we're just going to include that as one of the attachments to our report that we make to Public Works on Thursday. Right? So we'll come back to that when we talk about the report.
Sure.
But I think we'll have a list of exhibits, the three things from Ed, the analysis you did, if we can get a new map. Remember I mentioned I reached out to Fred a week and a half ago. He was going to reach out to Fred, who's
Fred Donette.
Okay. And so I emailed Ed, 2 hours ago. So
all right.
he hasn't got back to me, but it's out of his working hours.
But didn't he say it was PNC that had it?
Yeah, Fred Donette is the man.
So Ed doesn't control it.
Yeah.
So maybe this is an organizational thing where we need more people to have access to that within town hall, but that's not our mandate. We're not a TGS&A committee, we're a Public Works committee. So, but it would be great if all of our people had access to all the same data. Great. Long and short of it is, if I get an updated sidewalk map from Ed, I will include that as an attachment.
Last minute add-on.
Otherwise, I'll just use what we have. And again, I think we're all aware of what the issues and deficiencies are on the existing map, right? That it's dated from 2018, and it has one erroneous sidewalk on Old Kings Highway South that doesn't actually exist. Right. So those are the points there. Is there anything else you want to add, change, anything on your file, Rolf, or you're good to launch that?
I'm spent.
You're tapped.
I'm spent.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, he's in yeoman's work there.
It's fantastic. So like I said, I'm gonna do some final formatting.
Sure.
If I can do any more additions, I will, but I think we're probably tapped out at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it's good work for just a few weeks.
Yeah, given the time frame.
Yep. And kudos to you, and kudos and thanks to Jeff also for his work on this.
Yes.
Okay, so that is the end of agenda item 3. Agenda item 4 is a review of the format of the output for the report to Public Works. So I have a draft, oh, sorry, Rolf, here's this for you.
If you have one, yeah,
Of course.
thank you, appreciate it.
It's a full service.
I'm impressed, I have to admit.
So, so I'm just gonna walk through this quickly, with focus on the last few slides, because the last few slides are what we changed, or what we talked about, and I edited in response to everyone's comments last week. So the first page is the cover slide, it says who's here, and the date of the meeting is Thursday. Oh, by the way, I did email Mark.
Yeah,
I think I copied only you.
I saw what you had
To say, hey,
told them, yeah.
I think we need about 25 to 30 minutes to present, have a
And
discussion,
have a
and make a
conversation.
motion if we need to make a motion. And I don't think that was necessarily included in the agenda that Mark sent out, but, you know, we'll talk about it.
I think he might have crafted
I
that,
think he was traveling,
yeah,
so,
or he was traveling before he
Yeah,
got,
so-
yeah, I think there was a cross.
again, no
We'll get-
worries, we'll
we'll get
figure
it.
it out. Yep. But I had asked Mark for some time on the agenda, so that
Yeah.
I'm confident we'll get that. So the second page, like we talked about last time, is just the context, like a little bit of history, that pedestrian infrastructure is a longstanding issue of concern for Public Works, that Public Works catalyzed the original Pedestrian Infrastructure Advisory Committee, we call it PIAC, in 2015, which delivered a final report in December of 2015, which had a broad range of recommended improvements, and that the Public Works Department has undertaken and delivered a range of those improvements over the last 8 years. And now, more recently, Public Works wanted to evaluate how did the Public Works Department do against the PIAC report, and that's why our subcommittee was established. So that's what we're meant to be doing. Slide 3 is, as you guys know, is simply the snapshot out of the PIAC report with the summary of the recommendations, and just as a highlight, it's 115 crosswalks that were potentially proposed, 25 sidewalk segments that were proposed, 27 sites that could support a bike lane, and 17 lighting opportunities. And so that's what they did in 2015. That was in a 132-page report, which was exhaustive, but a little hard to summarize and manage, right? So, so now I'm on slide 4. So what materials did we review? We reviewed the PIAC report from December. We reviewed some materials from Ed Gentile, the list of sidewalks in town as of about 2012, projects completed to 2023, and the map of sidewalks in town, that map dates from about 2018. And then most importantly, we as a team, but really Rolf, you primarily with Jeff, did a complete review and breakdown of the PIAC report recommendations, and then we cross-reference that against some of the projects completed. Right? And all that stuff's gonna be included as an appendix. We good so far?
Yep.
So far, the only comment I would make is, I had included several tables with the data.
The pivot tables?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and some of the output in those pivot tables is not tying back to what was.
So I found some duplicative stuff in the, again, I was mostly looking at sidewalks. So I
Yeah.
found some things that seemed to my eye to be 100% duplicative.
Okay.
So I don't know if you had,
I didn't do any editing on sidewalks, I can say that for sure.
okay, so then maybe it's something that you put in and Jeff put in, so it's hard to
Possibly.
tell. I mean, there's 250 rows in that spreadsheet,
Right.
so it's possible there's something hidden in there that,
Mm-hmm.
We don't know about.
Wouldn't doubt it.
yeah. But I didn't want to just start deleting stuff because you had put so much time in.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm sorry. I think we're okay.
So let's give us a light bulb.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think we're okay with a little romantic,
Interlude.
exactly. Okay, so I'm on page 5 of this draft report. And so this is starting to be stuff that is new for you guys. So the initial report covered sidewalks, crosswalks, bike path, and lighting. I won't read every word on this slide because, I mean, you guys know this. That we've got a consistent program of sidewalk maintenance. You know, we've done some upgrades, we've done some new stuff. I would say what I just said to you as part of the report, that of the 4 segments that are new, only 2 of them even addressed needs that were listed in the PIAC report, and 2 of them were also helpful, but not identified as needs in the original report. For crosswalks, we don't have a database of crosswalks, but we have a database of sidewalks. We know that they've generally been maintained and repaired, and we think there have been a few new ones added. For example, Tokenique Road has a crosswalk just south of the I-95 overpass, where there was not one before. That connects the legacy sidewalk on the north side of Tokenique Road with the new sidewalk on the south side of Tokenique Road, because there was no room to.
I understand.
So we know there have been a few added,
Right.
but compared to the 115 that were identified, it's a drop in the
We
bucket.
got a ways to go.
Right. Bike paths, we think there have been no installations of any bike paths by Public Works. We know there have been some share the road signs that have been put in by other parties, and Patrick seemed to be pretty confident those other parties were, at least in part, the Darien Police Department.
Yeah.
That's great. And we know that we have in process,
Right.
with no
Conclusion.
definition around the timetable, a potential request to get a $600,000 grant from WestCog in conjunction with New Canaan for a comprehensive set of bike paths that would circulate through the two towns. Lighting is reviewed in the analysis, but we didn't have the capacity to.
I didn't get in depth on it, that's, that I can tell you.
So on the next page 6, I mean, I think this is the most important chunk right here, is to say, most of the needs identified in the PA report have not been addressed, full stop. The overall pace of maintenance and repair appears reasonable, at least to me, and it seems like to you guys as well. But the pace of adding new sidewalks and crosswalks is insufficient, meaning if this is going to be a priority, it doesn't feel like it's a priority, right? We're not making, in 8 years to add, under 2,000 linear feet of new sidewalks that match up with the needs in the report, we can do better. The rest of this slide really talks about some of the critical gaps that still exist in all the focus areas near the schools, railroad stations, and the town center. So some of the things that have gotten the most attention are the north end of Hoyt Street, approaching Talmadge Hill, excuse me, Edgerton Street from West Avenue to West Elm, kind of that last connecting bit. Gardner Street, the whole length really from Maple Street at the north to the Post Road in the south, which touches on the Nona Rise Railroad Station, which is just north. Hindley School and YMCA, which are on the Post Road at the south end. Mansfield Avenue, we know that the zoning there is very kind of broadly distributed, but that there's an opportunity certainly, especially now that we've rebuilt Ox Ridge. You could go south to Overbrook, and there is a sidewalk on Mansfield from Overbrook southbound from there. So that would connect with the existing network. And you could go north to Half Mile Road, which again, the houses are fairly distributed, but at least you'd have something nearby. And there's a whole bunch of other sidewalk segments that are in need of repair or upgrade. For crosswalks, we know there's a lot of, again, with 115 things identified, there are many critical opportunities to improve pedestrian safety. We've talked about Post Road and West Avenue, and Post Road in Mansfield in the area of the Darien train station. We've talked about a series of cross streets on Middlesex, from the intersection of Hoyt and Christie Hill near the Stanford side, heading up to Holliger Ridge Road near the middle school. And then Gardner Street, in addition to needing the sidewalk, also has a whole bunch of crosswalks that would be opportunities as well, that would all enhance access both northbound to the railroad station and southbound to Post Road. So, I mean, I think that's the fundamental finding here, is that we haven't done enough, I would say. And that's, again, not trying to pile on Ed or really anybody, but as a town, we have the bandwidth, we have the resources, we can do better. And I think in my view we should, and I hope that you guys agree.
Yeah, I think there's room to do more than what has been accomplished in the time frame from 2015 to now.
Right.
Okay, because it's like 8 years.
Right.
Going on now. So I would hope to think we can do.
Well, for the Darien train station, commuters walking from the neighborhood, just that whole area requires, if it doesn't have sidewalks or whatever, it should, because we kind of want to promote walking.
100%. So we've talked both at the original report and in our earlier meetings about the prevalence of jaywalking in the region of Post Road and Tokenique to the south side of the train station, which is the New Haven bound side.
Right.
We've talked about and our guest at our first meeting called out the crosswalks and timing on the north side of that intersection.
Right.
which is the north side of the train station.
Right.
And then also in the PIAC report, there was some extensive discussion of like the whole Mansfield Avenue passing through, what's the park, Tilly Pond Park.
Yeah.
And all the ways people access that area and how they have to get across to the train station eventually.
Yeah, but the sidewalks and the access that I'm talking about is like from Mansfield and then going in across and then working your way, because, yeah, I lived on Mansfield and,
Right.
and I.
How far were you
I was
from the train
too
station?
I was far above, and I wasn't a train commuter. I mean, I was, 200, Mansfield, so above Mansfield Place. But you know, my son would go to Royal School with his friends. They would cut across on, I forget the road, Hamilton or what's, and then through a neighbor's backyard into Royal School. That's how they avoided walking on Mansfield.
Right. So I think some of the Mansfield sidewalks have gotten addressed in the last few years with maintenance, but there's certainly nothing new that's gone in. First of all, not to my knowledge, and not on Ed's list.
Yeah.
So I think, again, opportunity for, and as I'm just scanning this list right here, I don't see Mansfield listed at all on the stuff that was updated or cleaned up.
Well, I hate to bring it up, but I mean, how much of a factor is the state road and Connecticut DOT when it comes to Mansfield?
Let's come back to that, right? Because we know that we've done stuff in area. First of all, we know that we've, in the past, tackled hard projects in conjunction with the state. It is doable. For example, go back 20 years, we got trucks banned off Tokenique Road, all of 136.
Oh, yeah, 136.
Right,
I remember
which
that.
was, it used to be a big cut through for UPS trucks and other
Yeah,
delivery
all kinds of trucks, yeah.
from the south end of Norwalk, cutting through Route 8 and Darien, and getting on 95 at exit, is that 12, headed southbound. So you can work with the state to get these done, right? We know that we have in the past, first put a crosswalk across Tokenique Road there must have involved the state to some degree because it's a state road, right? So again, it is doable, right?
Sorry, where were you saying, across Tokenique Road?
So remember we talked about there's a new crosswalk on Tokenique Road that is just south of the I-95 overpass.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
It connects the legacy sidewalk on the north side of Tokenique, which has been rebuilt,
Yeah, okay, I'm with
to the
you.
new sidewalk on the south side, which takes you under the overpass and towards town. Right, so we got a crosswalk there, it's a state road. Again, I don't know how hard that was, but clearly it's doable, right? So I don't want to let the state road thing just be an automatic roadblock.
Yeah,
It probably means there's a higher level of
I understand.
effort involved, right?
Yeah, that's.
So I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's not an absolute bar. Some of the things we talked about, I'm moving on to slide 7 out of 8 here. Some of the things we talked about last week, I just kind of collected in like additional context, like what has happened since 2015, right? And the 3 things we talked about were, number 1, there's been all these developments in town, some of which have considered sidewalks, but not all, right? One of those developments, the Corbin District downtown, Federal Realty and the Palmer's project in Rutland Heights, and then the Oxridge School rebuild, and the Hindley Homes and Royal renovations, right? So those have all gotten done to some degree or another. And
Yeah, now the Palmer's they've just broken ground and they've torn down all those buildings.
well, they tore all the buildings down years ago, right? It's been,
Well, they were sitting there for a while. They were fenced
Right.
in. They finally took them down and now they're finally breaking ground and starting to put in things for foundations. So
Right.
that's gonna come on
yeah.
in a couple of years.
So number 2, I think Patrick spoke about this last time, the pandemic has really changed how we live and work, right? We need access to points that are in town and access to transportation networks beyond town, mostly Metro North, but other access paths as well, whether it's bike, walking, or bus. And we know that we have many additional residents in town, right? Because the pandemic drove a lot of city residents to move out to the country, right? I guess we're the country. And we know we have hundreds of housing units coming online that are either like already leased or sold or kind of or already committed to be built, right? So we're going to have a lot more demand for a lot more pedestrian infrastructure. right? And then thirdly, we know state priorities and funding are increasingly emphasizing pedestrian access, right? That
Well, and safety.
exactly, well, pedestrian deaths are increasing in Connecticut. They've increased
Yep.
22 over 21 and 21 over 20, and that is seen as a priority area for the Connecticut Department of Transportation. And that leads to the last point here, the state support for safe streets and complete streets, which are kind of separate concepts, separate buzzwords in the state, but they point to the same thing. They want to make it safer for people to walk. So again, the one that comes to mind for me is always the people walking in the winter at the top of White Street when they get off the train at Talmadge Hill, right? That whether they are headed home to their homes on, what is it, Barringer way up there? Or Leeds, so there's those two roads that are way up at the top.
Way up at the borderline, yeah.
Or if it's the folks who are going to work at Woodway, and they take the train.
Yes, I saw that in the report.
Yeah, we don't want those folks walking in the street. So, and I know that there's a question again about, well, if we build a sidewalk to the line of New Canaan, what if they don't build it? Well, then it's on them that they didn't build it, but we're doing our part.
I'm not gonna spend a lot of time worrying about what New Canaan is or isn't.
Exactly, but I think when they're inside our town, south of that line, like, we should have a safe place for them to walk. Right? My personal view, and I think this is something that's
No, I don't think
been for a
anybody
long time.
disagrees with that in principle.
It's a question of priorities and investment. So again, the takeaway in that yellow box here, was yellow on my page anyway.
All right, okay.
I treated myself to a color.
Very good.
So the gaps and the need that we identified in the 2015 PIAC report are even more critical to address today, right? For the safety of the various different populations of pedestrians and bikers, right? So this is no less necessary, it's more necessary than it was.
Yeah, the need hasn't gone away, and in fact, it's probably become more acute.
Exactly. So the last slide here is recommendations to Public Works, right? So what are we going to suggest to Public Works that actually either needs to be done or advocated? So there's two parts to this. The first is the slide that's in front of us, and then the second is a motion that I think we need to make that I haven't yet drafted, but we can talk about it, right? But we should be in it. So I think the mechanism here is if we're going to make these recommendations to Public Works, we as a subcommittee should adopt, should be ready
Recommended.
to make a motion to Public Works that will put Public Works on record as supporting this this program. Does that make sense?
Right.
So the things that I think we need to recommend to Public Works is, first of all, bless you.
Thank you.
That we don't see a need for a PIAC 2.0, right? I think the data that Ed's got, the data that the original PIAC report has, all the work you've done, Rolf, right? That we have 95% or more.
Yeah, I don't want to initiate a 2.0, but I would say that just given the disparity that I mentioned earlier about the table that was in the original PIAC report and where we are today with sidewalks and the numbers we have on that now, I think, some review to,
Great.
so
someone needs to
reconcile the two documents so that we're
Exactly.
all on the same page and number of
Right.
But
areas
essentially,
to be
the
addressed.
point is that we don't need to restudy this again. Let's work on fixing what
Yeah, what we have.
Yeah, let's take the data.
deficiencies that we've noted so far from the original report.
Exactly. And between those deficiencies identified in the original report and the data that Ed's got,
Yeah.
or should have access to, like, we can act. We don't need to wait to study.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to stress the importance of tackling the more challenging locations in town. The low-hanging fruit has probably been taken, all right? So it's worth focusing on things that seem harder, whether it's because there are obstacles in the right of way, because it's on a state road, or what have you. And what does that look like, right? That looks like making greater investment of staff time, capital spending, and probably some planning and maybe some legal resources to actually investigate what the problems are and try and solve them, right? It's prioritizing development of detailed plans to address the critical problem areas, right? So we know that plans exist for the top of Hoyt, right? But there are other locations in town. I don't think necessarily a plan exists for the bottom half of Edgerton, right? Or for a couple of other spots that we mentioned, like if we don't have a detailed plan, we should at least come up with at least one, maybe some alternatives.
Well, yeah, that's what's starting to go through my mind. I mean, you're talking here about saying the importance of tackling challenging locations. Okay, what are the challenging locations is the next question that pops into my mind immediately, okay? Because what you might consider a challenging location, others might say, oh, no, I consider this to be a more challenging location. So the issue of coming together with some sort of common agreement about a prioritization of what are the challenging locations. Okay, so that we're all in agreement that as a public works committee, that, you know, okay, these are in order of importance how we see it. I think that it's in some way, shape, or form that has to be addressed at some point, I would think.
So I would agree. There have been times when I think over the last several years, we have spent more money on sidewalks than before the PIAC report, right? So that's good, and we've repaired stuff, and we've got a couple of extensions. I think we are suggesting that we need to make an even bigger financial commitment here, right? And to your point, Rolf, I agree, the prioritization should not be left solely up to Ed, as much as I like him and trust his judgment, or up to the Board of Selectmen to be saying, oh, here's where we want to magically place a sidewalk here, place a sidewalk there. I think we want to have some kind of structure to say, how do we matrix cost per foot, length of distance that we want to do, centrality in town, proximity to hotspots, whatever our priorities are, so that we can come up with some set of recommendations that we can do, right? Again, we don't run Public Works, Ed does, and I'm not trying to substitute for his judgment, because his judgment is excellent. But if we want to do better, we need to be specific with him about what better looks like. Again, continuing on the point of stressing the importance of tackling the more challenging spots in town, we want to mobilize and focus on the problem areas where plans exist. Again, like the north end of Hoyt, some other places where plans do exist, or where solutions are evident. I think at the Edgerton from West Elm to West, right? It's obvious where the sidewalk should go, right?
Yeah.
It's a question of having the kind of organizational muscle and the political will to say, okay, we're going to do these things,
want to do this, yeah.
And how do we approach the homeowners, or how do we approach other property owners in the area to make this fair and equitable, right? But our network needs a sidewalk there. So, and if it's in our right of way of the street, we probably have the right to do it. Want to find ways to, I think we should be recommending that we find ways to spotlight the sidewalk extensions and the crosswalk installations. I'm not sure what that looks like. I mean, I was just spitballing here, like, do we ask for it to be a separate discussion topic within the annual budget meetings, as opposed to just all wrapped up in Public Works? Do we ask to have a separate budget accounting line in the town budget so that we can for sidewalks and crosswalks, as opposed to, again, being all wrapped into.
Yeah, I would definitely want to, my own opinion would be, yeah, we should look at new sidewalks as a topic, if you will, and a budget
allocation.
line item, okay?
Yeah.
Repair and maintenance of existing sidewalks, again, as a line item in the budget. And then same for crosswalks and bike paths. I mean, I think we have to quantify those each and present them as what we consider the priority areas in each one of those.
Right.
Now, in terms of budget, you know, I think the Board of Selectmen is going to say, listen, there's only so many dollars that we can see clear to do for all these various things.
Right, but if we know that these are priority areas that serve hot spots in town where there's a significant amount of traffic, bike, pedestrian, or what have you, right? And that we have the amounts from Ed like per linear foot of these things, right? Mm-hmm. It's not insane. It's like $100-ish per linear foot, right? Now, if we go through an area that has either more physical obstacles, more legal obstacles, it's going to be more expensive. But compare that to what we're spending on Great Island. Come on, we're talking about spending millions on Great Island without even a plan yet. So again, if there's money for Great Island, There's money to put sidewalks in where people are walking in the street, where we've had these problems documented for 15 years at least.
I understand, but I think the town is starting to approach a situation where some hard decisions are gonna have to be made.
So my job.
That's all I'm gonna say.
And that's a legitimate point of view, but I guess I'm saying as the Public Works Subcommittee on Pedestrian Infrastructure, right, I want to highlight how important this is, right?
Okay.
And
We certainly don't want to let it get lost.
right, and to your point, I want to make the decision harder, right? I want to say, here's the needs that the town has, right? And, you know, we're not, I don't think we are in a position to let those slide indefinitely, right?
We don't want to see them be ignored, that's for sure. We want
Right.
to see some sort of plan on a town basis to
Right.
address these areas that were identified in 2015 and remain to this day.
Exactly,
Okay?
exactly.
Now, you know, how that all
Look,
gets.
I'm not in a position, I'm not in
Now,
a
that
position
all
to pound
gets
the table and
budgeted,
say,
everything,
do this,
that's a
do
whole
that.
different
That's
deal.
not my, that's not my role,
Yeah.
right? But I do want to highlight how important we think these are,
Yeah.
right? And that these haven't gotten the attention they need. To finish this page, I do want to set specific goals for sidewalks and crosswalks. And they could, and maybe it's not us setting it, maybe it's the Board of Selectmen, maybe it's Ed setting a goal and he gets to try to achieve it. But if you don't have a goal, then you don't even know what you're doing, right? And that could be, I'm gonna deliver X linear feet of sidewalk per year, 500 feet, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, or I'm gonna deliver, I'm gonna take
20
care-
new crosswalks.
Yeah, or I'm gonna solve the problem area around the railroad station, right? And that's gonna take me 2
That's right,
years.
yeah.
And I don't know exactly how many feet of sidewalk or how many crosswalks, or I don't know how it's gonna, but I'm gonna commit to solve that problem area in 2 years, right? That would be a valuable goal, right? So whatever the goals are, I'm flexible, but you have to have some standards or you don't know what you're measuring.
Yeah, and it will just continue to just go on for another, who knows how many years,
Exactly.
without, substantial progress.
Great. And last, I think the RTM Public Works Committee should revisit this analysis, meaning, and report on it regularly.
Okay, what's
That's,
regularly?
that's the point. What do we, what happens to this committee?
Well,
What happens to this committee after we've made the
Our little
report?
subcommittee,
Yeah.
I think, at least for the moment, vanishes in a puff of
Vanishes.
logic, right?
But
However,
But I think our P&Z, our Public Works, RTM,
So let's-
should have a,
so let's talk about that, right? That can be part of our recommendation, part of the motion we want to make
yeah,
to Public Works. Do we think that we need a standing subcommittee on sidewalks? Like, we could say,
well, you have a discussion group on it right now.
Right.
Do you want to elevate it now to more of a standing
right, so
committee?
if we say, okay, we want Public Works to always have, or at least for the indefinite future, to have a working group, a subcommittee, what have you, on sidewalks that will liaise with Ed, liaise with the Board of Selectmen,
And
right?
press.
Attend the
Press the
town
issue.
meetings, exactly. And that we're committed to staff that at a level of 5 people, right? That would be a diversion of other resources from what we normally do, but maybe this is worth it, right?
Well, that'll lead, certainly I think, a discussion within the committee about, what's everybody's feeling about how important this is. Do you all agree that this is important to pursue into the future, to see progress, yes or no? I think that's the first thing to establish, that everybody's on the
Right.
page, that yes, this is a worthy.
Well, the first place is to say, here's the data we've got,
Right.
here's the conclusions we reach.
Right.
Does anyone else have a different conclusion, right? So, okay, so yes or no, I can't imagine that anyone has different data. Right? So, do you think that this level of performance is sufficient? I don't think it's adequate, right? At least as far as connecting gaps in the network. Other people may have a different perspective, that's fine. If the view prevails, as I think it should, that we want to do better, then the question turns to how do you do better?
How do you execute that?
Exactly. And I think the way you execute that is by having the Public Works Committee, the larger group, adopt a motion that says we want to do better, right? So what we're now doing is we're defining.
Yeah, we're gonna formulate a group that's gonna be involved with this going into the future.
Right. And but I think we'd want to get some commitment from, I mean, it'd be ideal to get some commitment from the Board of Selectmen or from Ed, that the prioritization that we come up with will have some impact on the work that gets done.
Oh,
Right.
boy.
But that, otherwise, we're just.
What's the point?
Exactly. So I think you have.
If they're not on board with it, then we might as well just shut the whole thing down, you know? We'll give them
Okay,
what we
so
give them what we recommend.
So I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
If they don't agree with it, then it's our job
What?
to make it harder for them
Okay.
to disagree.
Okay.
Right.
And how do you propose about
You go to
accomplishing that?
meetings and you meet,
Make noise.
reach out, yeah.
Okay.
You advocate for the things that you care about.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if we as Public Works care about this, and if we as individuals, the three of us and other folks on the committee care about this, we need to commit to
Organizing and continually following.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean being obnoxious, it doesn't mean being rude, it means saying, hey, we have these objectives as a committee and as a town, and they're not being met, right? And what is the plan to get these met? And when you get the answer, go away the first time, you come back the second time.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I get your point, I get your point.
So, but again, I think we need to decide whether we want to make that commitment as Public Works. I think it's the only way we're going to get measurable progress here.
Yeah, I agree with you there. If someone doesn't keep raising the question, then the question will just like disappear.
Right. And then this report will get filed somewhere in the town server.
That's what.
It'll get in the file somewhere and.
It's like the Underrated of the Lost Ark, and you know.
Right, yeah, top people are working on this.
Top.
Yeah, people, right?
Right. And again, this is no slam on Ed. Ed, I have 1,000% respect for Ed and like the job he's doing. And it's not my place to second guess what the Board of Selectmen has done in the past. But we're saying that going forward, we need a greater investment of time, personnel, capital resources, maybe legal, you know, if we care about this, we as a town need to actually show that we
Do something more.
And as a committee, we need to push it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that puts the onus back on the Public Works Committee without a doubt.
Right.
Okay, because they're the only voice that can stand up and track it.
But we were the engine of this 8 years ago.
Report on it, okay?
Right. Rolf, were you on the RTM 8 years ago for this?
No.
I don't think so. Yeah, so we were the engine of this, and I mean, there were some people who kind of got themselves out of joint by saying, well, the RTM is supposed to be this passive body that only approves the things that the Rules Committee gives to it. And
Yeah.
we said, well, we don't have a different perspective, right? And we were launching something out of Public Works, right? Again, it's not like we're inventing something new in the world here.
Well, you know, Jack Davis came out just recently with, you know, this whole review of the descriptions of each of the committees.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a statement, he was very specific that he felt that this should strengthen each of the committees to be more creative, to be on their own, and to pursue, you know, agendas that they feel are important for the town.
Right,
So, and he's on the Rules Committee,
great.
so I think that is changing.
So I'm just thinking out loud here, if this is a working group of the Public Works Committee, we have total control over how we compose that and how we manage that. If the selectmen want to create a committee of their own, we would want to have some representation on that.
Which,
Right.
and that's entirely
Which
feasible,
would be a way
because
to,
I could see a scenario where, particularly in the interest of safety, that this gets
broader than
enhanced
Public Works.
into a larger
Right. So are
body
we,
of people.
so are we asking for PAC 2.0 but with a different focus, right? It could be, it's like the original PAC 1 was all about field work and research and what exists. Because we didn't think we had a database of what exists, and now we do,
Okay,
right? PAC 2
2.0,
would be about prioritization.
prioritization and active involvement, monitoring, whatever,
Right, exactly.
which is a different level.
Right, so, but to your point then, that could involve representation from finance and budget, from public safety, from TGS&A, if we need to deal with other intergovernmental agencies as part of some, if we're working on a state road. So maybe there is room for that, maybe we should raise that as an option.
I think we should at least talk about it.
Right.
That it's a scenario that could come up.
Right. So I think if I'm just reflecting that, I think we're saying there needs to be some kind of permanent focus on sidewalks as a subdivision of public works, but that might interact with other stuff. And that maybe we need to collaborate more with public works or with the selectmen to figure out what that looks like. I mean, I don't think the selectmen's race this year is competitive.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we know who the key players are going to be.
Yeah, there might be a little shuffling around, but
Right.
yeah, I'm up this year as well.
You're an odd year guy.
Yeah, because I didn't win the last
Oh,
election.
that's right.
So
You got
I was-
placed on, yeah.
I got placed on, so I have to go up for election again.
Get your forms filed on time?
I did.
Good.
I did.
Well, I'm up for election as well.
But District 4 is apparently, the ballot's full, but there's no contested seats.
Right.
There's an empty seat in ours, so it's District 2, so I'm sure to get in. I usually lose when,
Yeah.
I lose when there's an extra candidate for,
Okay, so what we haven't done is draft an actual motion, but the more we talk about it, the more it seems like it's not yet baked enough to do that.
Yeah, see, I'm more inclined to bring out to the committee's attention all these considerations and variables that could come into play, and then get a consensus about what their feeling is going forward.
Right.
I mean, that's, I think the most important thing is that there is a consensus. Once there is a consensus, then we can, pound out the language.
So I don't want to be unprepared. If there's let's say best possible case, everyone, here's what we have to say, loves what we have to say, agrees that there needs to be some kind of long-standing presence, right? If there is if all the vibes are right, then we should be ready to put a motion on the table to say, here's what we want,
that sounds right.
right?
Yeah.
All right, my only interest at this point in time is to, in that regard, put something forward that is a statement in principle of the role that the Public Works Committee would want to play in an active way in monitoring sidewalks and crosswalks and safety going now and into the future, with a relationship to specifically the Board of Selectmen, unless they come up with something else.
Well, they won't, right? So I guess that's the thing is, if we know it sounds like as we're just talking here, we're kind of narrowing down on something that's bigger than, it's kind of PAC 2.0, but with a different focus, right? If that's what we want, then we should be ready to put a motion in front of the Public Works Committee recommending that the selectmen create PAC 2.0. And then that is an official resolution of the Public Works Committee. It doesn't get more formal than that, right?
What do you mean by resident 2.0? In other words, another study?
No. I guess,
No, we were talking earlier about how the study and all of the
Yeah, that's already been done.
background work has been done. Now we're saying, okay, because of the progress or lack thereof, that we might want to take a more active role going into 2.0.
right. But 2.0 would be very different from 1.
Right.
Yeah.
1 was all about data gathering,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And making that report
Yeah.
and figuring out where the gaps are. 2.0 would be not about data gathering, it would be about prioritization. We have all the data.
Prioritization.
What are we recommending as the top priorities for the town?
And the relationships to the town to accomplish
But it
some
also
progress.
it also candidly, if you form a committee, it gives the town a greater group of volunteers who are more ready to reach out. So if you have somebody who's a designated liaison to some state agency, like there's people in town who work with the state agencies all the time,
Okay.
right? If we have people in town who are dedicated to researching things, if there's somebody in town dedicated to maintaining the map, I'm just saying, if you create a committee, you also create a pool of labor people who are volunteering to help, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
given the concept of what we're talking about, we're definitely gonna need people who's gonna be willing to, you know,
Exactly, to do some,
roll up the
do some work.
sleeves and get involved,
Right,
okay? Not just give it, you know,
right.
How about setting goals or something where, I mean, just do like a half-mile radius around each railroad station and just say, okay.
well, that,
And just,
Yeah.
all right, fix what's in that, fix as like one of the,
So what you're suggesting is how to set the priorities?
Yeah.
And that makes total sense to me, right? But the point is that someone's got to agree that we have a voice in that. Because
okay.
right
all right.
now,
Okay, that's where we're.
right, so right now, the voice is the selectman giving direction to Ed Gentile, and that's it.
Mhm.
Right, and we don't, you can write a letter to the selectman if you want.
Right, yeah.
But I guess what we're saying here is that we're trying to create something that structurally gives more input from more sources, so that it's not just the selectman to Ed.
Right.
Because again, no disrespect to the selectman, but Ed drives that conversation, right? Because
Yeah.
he's the expert and he's really good.
yeah.
And if I was in their shoes, I'd trust him too.
And they do, and I mean, if you listen to some of the meetings, it's like, Ed, what sidewalks are you gonna do this year? You know?
So I
That's
just think we
basically
need,
it.
yeah, so we need to, at a minimum, create some goals to say it's important for us to do more,
Yep.
right? It's important for us to
And
address
see these
some harder
priorities.
places in town. And we think the priorities are either, pick a hot spot around the Darien Railroad Station, pick a hot spot around home school, pick a series of like all the crosswalks. Again, my favorite bogeyman is Middlesex, from Hoyt to Hollow Tree, where there's all those streets that have no crosswalks, right?
Mhm.
Is Middlesex a state road? I don't think so.
No,
So we could put,
Mansfield is,
and so is Hoyt, and
Hoyt.
Tokenique.
Kokonik, that's it.
Right, okay. So like we could put crosswalks anywhere we want on Middlesex, as long as it makes
West
sense.
Avenue, there was a lot of recommendations in the report about West Avenue.
Is that not a state road?
That's not a state road.
Okay. So, I mean, there's things to think about, and, if it goes with crosswalks, I don't want to go too far afield, but we talked about some traffic calming measures last time. And if we feel that people are racing down west, are there things we want to do to address that? So,
Yeah, I mean,
so we're at 8:30.
oh, okay.
This has been helpful. Do you guys have any other suggestions, input?
No.
No, I'm just very interested to.
So exactly,
meet
what
up
do you
with-
think, what's the motion you got?
So I don't have so as we were talking, I started off thinking we need a motion, then I kind of grew away from that,
Yeah,
right? And then I'm more kind of close to where you were, Rolf, like, if in the discussion it seems like there's consensus,
Yeah.
then I want to have a motion draft or something that's easily
yeah, I think it'd be,
shared to say, hey, if we all agree, here's what we as Public Works should be committing to, right?
and then let the discussion go from there.
Correct.
But at least put something on the table as a,
As a commitment.
Well, and to begin
Well,
the conversation in a
yeah, as
way.
a catalyst to synthesize
Right. I think the motion's important.
a resolution
Right.
within the committee, but then that would then have to have some sort of plan about, okay, where are we going with this?
Right. So, I mean, just to be clear, I'm the chair of this little subcommittee, right? But I don't have to be the leader on the motion.
Okay.
I'm glad for either of you to do it if you feel strongly about it. If you guys want to
I'll put
take the
my,
lead, you're welcome to. I don't want to I don't want it to feel like this is the Frank Edelman show, because it's not, right? I mean,
okay.
a lot of other people have done a lot of work on this, and
I might volunteer for that.
Whoa,
Vinny,
and then he's stepping up.
there you go. So, seriously, why don't we have a dialogue tomorrow? You draft something up and shoot me an email,
Yeah, okay.
and then we'll talk.
Very good. I'm proud of you.
Well,
Vinny, walking into the
I gotta do something in this.
It's going into the lion's mouth
yeah,
now.
walking into the arrow's chest first. All right, so I think we're ready to adjourn.
Yeah.
So let me just make sure I'm not missing something on the agenda.
Motion. Make a motion.
Yeah, so I think we've discussed planning what we're going to do at the meeting ad nauseum, and I think we're ready to adjourn, unless anybody objects.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second, we're done.
All in favor?